It's all about mentoring, isn't it?
That is interesting. It's very different.
Welcome to the next episode of Endoscopy Essentials, and a very warm welcome to Siwan Thomas-Gibson. If I may start with, I've known you for quite some time, but one thing I especially remember, it was a live demonstration during the BSG days, and you did an unsedated colonoscopy showing how you do the simple thing. And it was like art. You went in and explaining everything. So the colon is your organ, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely. Yes, it has been for a long time. Christopher Williams, who you will remember, and Brian Saunders were my mentors, and both superb endoscopists, and they brought it alive to me. They taught me how to do colonoscopy.
But if we go back much further, how did you get into medicine? Were your parents doctors, or you are from London?
I'm from Wales originally,
from Wales.
From Swansea in South Wales. No, I have no medics in my family. But I distinctly remember when I was young watching a medical television series about the human body, and that I think captured my interest. And I think if you tell your parents that you want to be a doctor at a young age, they don't discourage you.
They're usually okay with
that. Particularly if they're not medics and they don't know what's up ahead. And so from that point on, every decision was, well, you know, what exams do I take? What subjects do I follow? And so it followed on from there.
And that TV series was about the body. So it was not one of the doctor series, Emergency Room or something.
No, it was called The Body in Question. I remember it well. And it was directed and produced by a doctor called Jonathan Miller, who was both a doctor and a sort of broadcaster.
And it had an audience?
A TV audience, yeah. It was a big TV audience, yes.
It would be difficult today, right?
Yes, yeah. Well, I mean, I think that it'd be very different now, but I think that's what sparked my interest.
How old were you?
About 11, I think, I was about 11. I remember it was on a Sunday night at 9 o'clock, and I was usually in bed by that time, but I was allowed to stay up to watch that
Just for
program.
that?
Yeah.
So this was the first approval of you becoming a doctor?
Yes.
And then you were studying in London?
I studied in London I went to what was called St Mary's Hospital, which is still there in Paddington, and that was subsumed into Imperial College. So I graduated from Imperial College in 1992, and then, you know, we do our rotations of attachments, and the first gastroenterology attachment I had was at Northwick Park, where St Mark's was based, with a fantastic mentor called Jonathan Levi, and he again sparked my interest in gastroenterology and encouraged me to do it as a specialty.
So it's all about mentoring, isn't it?
Definitely, because in fact I had wanted to do cardiology, and the cardiology consultant.
I did a lot of electives, and I wouldn't say I wanted to become a cardiologist, but this was definitely more on the radar.
Well, my consultant cardiologist told me it was a specialty not for girls, and so that I shouldn't do it.
Which was a standard saying at that time, probably.
Yes. But but Jonathan Levi was quite the opposite and very encouraging, and was so enthusiastic about gastroenterology that he again sparked my interest in gastroenterology.
So what was for girls at that time? Anesthesiology or dermatology or?
No, GP practice.
GP practice.
I think pediatrics, maybe dermatology, not the interventional specialties. There weren't very many gastroenterologists. In fact, I only recall Sheila Sherlock, who was a hepatologist, very famous hepatologist, but there weren't really any other gastroenterologists that I was aware of at that time. No female role models. I didn't come across any until later on.
But Sheila Sherlock didn't do endoscopy, did she?
No, she was a hepatologist, and I didn't work with her directly, but she was very revered and very, very famous for being successful.
That's right. So you started your medical studies, and then how's the system in Great Britain? That's how many years is that?
So
6 years or 5 years? Or?
So as at medical school, I did 6 years because I did a sort of time out to do a bachelor's degree in the middle of it. So 5 or 6 years, and you rotate through different specialties. I don't remember doing gastroenterology. I certainly don't remember seeing an endoscopy during medical school. It wasn't until I did my junior doctor jobs, again at Northwick Park with Jonathan Levi, where I first saw endoscopy. And even then, as a very junior doctor, we didn't go into the procedure room. We consented we consented the patients and prepped them, but we didn't do the procedure.
I consent you
just
for
said
something.
sign on the line. Yes,
it's there in this room. And
exactly.
Okay.
How much has changed? But then,
I mean, when you went into the room, all you were seeing was one guy with a black tube and no monitor. Huh?
Yeah, exactly. Looking down the end. Yeah.
It's like my son uses to say, "Daddy, you lived in the old times."
Yes, absolutely. So that it wasn't really a team sport at that point. Very difficult to train, and I often wonder whether I would have taken up endoscopy if I'd only seen it at that time. But by the time I was then what we call a registrar, sort of middle grade doctor, that was really when video endoscopy was taking off. And so it was much more live. You saw it on the screen.
That's right. I also remember that period, and it didn't take long, right? So it was immediately appreciated as a big jump forward.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so but finally you ended up in St. Mark's.
Yes. So
was there a long list of applicants for every post? Or,
well, the way I got in was, so I was doing gastroenterology and really struggling in the early years of endoscopy. I didn't have very good trainers at the beginning. On the whole, there were a couple, but on the whole, I didn't have very good trainers, certainly for colonoscopy. And I didn't understand what was going on. There was no scope guide imager. And I don't think some of my trainers really knew what was going on either. So it was difficult for them to explain what was going on.
Patient screening?
All very heavily sedated, because we certainly didn't use propofol or equivalent in those days. And two things happened. One, early on, and I don't mind talking about this, I've spoken about it before, early on in my career I had a complication, had a patient perforation, and that terrified me, really upset me, and could have obviously prevented me from carrying on. Yes, during a diagnostic procedure.
In the sigmoid?
Yes,
classical.
Exactly. And that was very instrumental, and it sort of, what it drove me to do was to get better. But it could obviously have had the opposite effect and put me off ever doing it again.
What made the difference? Your personality, or some people, or both? Or
that's a really good question. I think I had support of some sort, from colleagues and so on. And the aftermath was managed well, so the patient was operated on quickly and it was recognised immediately and so on. But around that time, I went to St. Mark's for a live demonstration course, which was Christopher Williams and Brian Saunders. And suddenly they made sense of it. And they spoke in a way that made the procedure sound possible, a bit like you're saying. I subsequently went on to demonstrate. They were very consciously competent. So they were able to describe exactly what they were doing, what was happening. And it was the early days, in fact, it was at a BSG that we saw the first prototype of the scope guide imager. And suddenly, what used to be a sort of black box of having no idea of what was going on inside the patient's body, this suddenly was on screen. And so I sort of linked up the two things, and I was on a rotation in that part of London anyway. And so I sort of literally knocked on the door and said, can I come and be your research fellow? I was very interested in teaching and training. I already had that interest. And I said, could I do some research into how to teach colonoscopy? Because I don't think it's taught very well everywhere.
I think, sorry to hook on that, because I think that's very, very important for everybody watching and for the young people. So when this complication happened, were you self-training yourself?
Pretty much, yes. Yeah, pretty much. It was in the days of, see one, do one, teach one, and there was no competency assessment.
So you were alone in the room with them?
I was at that time, yeah. That doesn't happen now.
I hope it's different now.
It is very different.
Maybe not always, but not in all countries.
In the UK, it's very different now. Very, very different. Thank
goodness.
Then
you didn't get further and you realized you could see the perforation, or
Yes.
the nurse told you?
Yeah, no, I could see the perforation, yeah. And the patient was not uncomfortable, but I think we were over-sedating patients at that time. Traumatic.
And then you went out and called your superior? Or
yes, and the surgeon.
And the first reaction was, huh? Or
for me?
No, from your consultant or whoever was responsible.
Well, that's also interesting because the consultant who was around at the time, in trying to be supportive, was a bit dismissive of it and said, "Well, don't worry, it'll happen again." And that was devastating, actually. That was devastating. And so I could sense that wasn't. There were lots of things I learned from that and have helped me in the future. And I think that's probably where my interest in high quality colonoscopy and safety comes in, because and mentoring and how important having a trainer in the room is, and supervising, and when things do go wrong, because they will go wrong. We were talking about that at this meeting recently, about how to support in that first in that first.
So that was the turning
minutes.
point. You decided to fight.
Yeah.
Somebody comes and says, "Oh, it will happen again."
Yes.
No.
Yeah. And I had seen colonoscopy being done very well, and I was very frustrated that what I was seeing in this place was very, very different to what I knew could be done.
And then you discovered at a meeting, that's also what meetings are good for, that there's a theory behind the...
Yes.
Yeah. And this ended up in one of those beautiful presentations during BSG Live years ago.
Yeah.
Okay, so spot on St. Mark's, you started as a registrar consultant?
I started as a research fellow. In fact, no, I started as a registrar because there wasn't a slot for research fellow. So I started as a registrar working in gastroenterology, and I was working part-time because I had children. And that meant that I was what we call supernumerary. I was an extra registrar on the rotation. So it made me, I was lucky, I was able to be a bit more flexible. I was able to get into endoscopy a bit more than perhaps I would have ordinarily been timetabled for. And I made a nuisance of myself with Brian and Christopher, and got myself into being trained. And then I talked to Brian about doing this training higher degree. So I did my thesis on colonoscopy training and how to train. And they were, of course, very interested in it. But again, a previous gastroenterologist had said to me, "Well, you don't do research into training, Siwan, that just happens,
That's not research.
That's not research, yeah. But I think, I've had a number of research fellows since who've continued on from getting their PhDs and MDs in teaching and training. And of course, there's a plethora of literature there. So we were at the beginning of writing competency assessments, the DOPS and the DOPPES assessments for assessing procedural skills, came from that work. I'm delighted to say, along with obviously a lot of other people.
It's this type of research or teaching is very prominent in the UK. You are very systematic. Why is that so? In other countries, it's kind of, there might be a curriculum, but...
So I think a number of things came together. We have an organisation called JAG, which is a quality organisation, multidisciplinary surgeons, physicians, nurses, and that had been created in the 90s to look at quality of endoscopy and training. But as I said, when I started training, really there was no format for training. There was no rule about the numbers of procedures you should do. There was no way of signing people off for the procedures. It was cowboy country, really, and people would be left to their own devices too soon. And certainly in endoscopy, JAG came about to try and improve training. And there was a seminal audit that was done in the late 90s but published in the early 2000s that everyone will remember, where the UK published our quality of colonoscopy and our cecal intubation rate. And it was shocking. It was very, very low. But of course, the obvious question is, we would say to other colleagues around the world, well, what's your national data?
Oh, it's very good, but we don't know.
We don't know, exactly. Nobody else knew. So there is something unique, I think, or almost unique about the UK, is that we have the NHS, and it's quite easy to get big data because all hospitals, you can ask all hospitals to submit data. So we had very big data sets that showed that colonoscopy quality was not good. And because we wanted to introduce bowel cancer screening, we knew we had to improve quality of colonoscopy in order to do that. And so a national program of training trainees and, more importantly, training trainers was developed. And so I was around at that time. So it wasn't just me and St Mark's, it was a national directive to try and improve, in the first instance, colonoscopy.
But it's essential to memorize that you have to have the data. So you have to have a data system. Otherwise, it's so cumbersome that people rather leave it, right?
Yeah.
As in most other countries, still. I think there's still a huge amount of self-teaching, right?
Yeah.
And
And Matt Rutter, who you know, he also was instrumental in a formal data set called the National Endoscopy Database. So now every endoscopy reporting system in private and NHS hospitals automatically dumps data into the National Endoscopy Database. So at the touch of a button, we know how many procedures are being done, what the cecal intubation rate is nationally, and so on.
And that's in your academic system, that's considered research now, and it's funded, or are still the basic research guy taking all the money?
So it was set up as partly a research project. It was adopted by JAG, and through the fees that hospitals pay to JAG for the accreditation process, it's funded that way. And a lot of research emanates from it, obviously.
Oh, yeah. I think I also remember during the COVID period, we lived from data from the UK and Israel, basically, whereas the other countries tried to find out what's going on. So Siwan, you changed sides a little bit. You got
evolved. I've evolved as a human being. Oh, what did I?
Why and how, and explain to us a little bit what you're doing now.
Well, endoscopy is still my happy place. I still do 3 or 4 colonoscopy lists a week. I still have trainees regularly on my list. So they're my 2, happiest things. I'm still involved in research, projects on UC dysplasia, and actually green endoscopy. One of my fellows is doing a PhD in. Still peripherally involved in the work that we've developed on non-technical skills and teaching and training. But I have shifted the balance slightly now to leadership position within St Mark's. I'm the medical director there. And that is interesting. It's very different, but it's a privilege in medicine, right, to be able to evolve and do something different. And I've had other leadership positions, so this is another one, different one, challenging, very challenging.
So what are the main challenges? Internal with the people or external towards politics?
Well, at the moment, this is a long conversation, but at the moment, it's a combination of those 2 factors. The NHS is going through a financial difficulty at the moment, and that's having an impact on everyone at every level in the NHS. It's mostly, though, most of the challenges are about people, and I love working with people, so that I find interesting.
But about politics, what can you do? I mean, are you teaming up with other directors from other NHS hospitals and convince the public that there should be more money invested, or the NHS restructured, or what?
So
is it just money?
Again, it's a good question. We have a sort of a group of hospitals within North West London. We're in hospital groups, so we do have immediate peers to bounce ideas off and to collaborate with, and some of the funding is sort of centralised in that way. How the government is now funding the NHS has just literally in the last couple of weeks changed, and we don't know what impact that's going to have. They say that by cutting out a whole level of bureaucracy, a huge level of bureaucracy, they're going to be able to, put a whole load more money into the workforce at a patient level.
Reducing bureaucracy is firing people working there, or
yes, yeah. So the management layers are being stripped out. There's a feeling that there's duplication at sort of Department of Health level, with a level beneath that was duplicating. And they were the sort of we call it a quango. They were the group that were the advisory group, so that hospitals have to feed data up to. So a whole layer of management above the hospital level is coming out, and that money is going to be apparently ploughed back, I hope, into the coalface, so to speak. So yeah, difficult times at the moment because financial cuts, but maybe some restructuring. And I think that's inevitable. I mean, we're very fortunate to have the NHS, but it is, you know, it's a bottomless pit. It's and it's such a huge organisation. There is a lack of efficiency. So trying to drive efficiency and productivity is really important.
So infuse some minor capitalistic elements into a public system. That's the balance is a big challenge, isn't it?
Yes, probably. And you know, we have to think. I mean, taking it back to endoscopy. I'm not a politician, but taking it back to endoscopy, you know, we have to really make sure that we are only doing, you know, very invasive, what are invasive procedures in patients people who really need them. You know, it's unpopular to talk about, you know, an aging population and so on, but doing unnecessary diagnostic colonoscopy is a huge waste of resource. It's a waste of money often. It can cause unnecessary risk. And whether it really makes a difference on an individual patient or population level has to be questioned. So, you know, that we say in terms of green endoscopy, you know, the greenest thing to do is to not do unnecessary endoscopy. So we have to do that at that base level.
Sure, and as a person, you took a break some time ago, right? And went to Spain.
Yes.
Do you want to tell about this?
Yes. I had worked.
Would you recommend this to everybody at some stage?
Well, it depends which hat I'm wearing. But yes, I would. So in 2022, I'd worked in the NHS for 30 years. And a lot of things were happening in my life. There were a number of people close to me in my life who were very unwell, and I wanted to see more of them. I'd had a really busy time of being chair of JAG, the organisation I told you, and dean of St Mark's at the same time. So it had been very busy through COVID. And so, yeah, I was fortunate enough to be allowed to take an unpaid break, I have to say, for a year. And I was quite busy, actually. I walked the Camino de Santiago in 6 weeks, which was incredible. And I would definitely, I mean, we're here in Barcelona now. I know I loved it. And it was something that would never have imagined doing. In fact, it was my research fellow that recommended it to me. So I did that. I did a coaching qualification to learn to be a professional coach, which has helped me with the leadership things, I think. I carried on supervising my research fellows, and I did do a little bit of endoscopy during the year.
So a sabbatical often consists of different professional things, but at least you had your Jacobs thing, which was different. So did you listen to medical podcasts there? No, some.
When I was walking, I hardly listened to anything at all. I did take some, not medical podcast, I took some of my books for my coaching qualification. But actually I didn't, for the first 4 weeks, I didn't listen to anything. Just the trees and the birds and it was wonderful.
So you are an extremely gifted teacher. You know, there are complaints about the next generation and blah, blah, which I think is rubbish. But what would be your advice at the end of this very nice podcast to the next generation? So especially with regards to endoscopy.
Yeah, so I think keep your eyes open and don't say no to any opportunity. So take every opportunity, first of all, I would say. And if there's something that you really want to do, don't let somebody put you off, because although I don't have any regrets about not doing cardiology, that was poor advice probably, although I'm very happy in gastroenterology. But it did take a bit of getting my elbows out to make sure I got, where I wanted to get to. If there's something that you're really passionate about, then just keep doing it. And I did decide to focus down and not stay very broad. So, my specialty is colonoscopy. It's what I love to do. It's different. Every single procedure you do is different. So I've never got bored of it. Just keep interested.
And how do you find a mentor? They just come along, or should you actively try to find one or several?
So that's a difficult question. You can be fortunate and find someone, and that's an informal mentor, but you can also seek out, certainly through ESGE and through the BSGB, British Society of Gastroenterology, we do have mentorship schemes. And in our medical, through the NHS, there is a mentorship scheme, so you can seek somebody out. That's, I think, higher risk than choosing somebody that you feel an association with. But if you don't feel somebody that you have a natural association with, and I've had many, many mentors of different natures over the years. So
it's the person-to-person interaction which counts.
But if you don't stumble upon that, then I would advise you to seek it out.
Okay. Siwan, thank you very much. It was a fantastic podcast. Thank you.
Thank you.